Hey guys, welcome to What the F. Oh my gosh, today's guest is so dope. Before I introduce her, though, I would like to thank Neurelis and SK Life Science for believing in this podcast and making conversations like this possible. My guest today is Jessica Chappell, who is just literally the story of climbing the corporate ladder in just the most amazing way, while being an epilepsy awareness advocate along the way. She is also the only woman in the state of Illinois who is certified to train law enforcement on seizure training. So she's kind of badass. Jessica, thank you so much for being here.
Oh my gosh, Landis, it is an honor. I've been waiting for this day.
Me too.
To come on the podcast.
Yeah.
I've been watching all the episodes, and so I'm so excited to be here.
I woke up early. I was like, I'm in a very good mood. I just can't wait to see Jessica.
Yes, absolutely. Same.
Well, thank you so much again. And I just kind of want to start with because your story just really blows my mind, because you started as a beauty advisor at a local drugstore.
Yeah.
And which, first of all, I'm like, that makes complete sense. You are absolutely someone I'd go to and be like, what the fuck do I do with my eyeliner?
Yes.
And I always love those beauty advisors. And I'm always going up to them like, excuse me, can you, and they're so wonderful and tell me what to do. So your whole vibe, I'm like, makes sense.
Yeah.
But you started there and you are in a very different place now within the same sphere, within the same company.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I started off actually as a cashier. So it was the summer before I went off to college. I started off as a cashier, and I was a cashier for 6 months. And apparently they thought I rocked it out, and they're like, we need you over in the beauty department. And I was
you
like,
are an amazing cashier, and we see your makeup. Yeah.
Exactly. And just interacting with the customers, right? Being able to connect on that personal level. They were like, okay, we need you over there driving beauty sales. And I loved it. It was wonderful being able to connect in that way. But I also went broke because I was in order to properly give recommendations, I have to try everything. So I always say half of my paycheck went back into the beauty department because I was trying everything. But it was so much fun. I did it all through college.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. And so, but from there, you still continued to rise within that same company.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What did that look like?
So it was interesting. So I actually have a criminal justice degree. My plans were very different for my future, but obviously, with epilepsy, criminal justice, that were very limited options. And so once I graduated college with my degree, I didn't have a job. And so Walgreens was like, oh my God, we need a manager. Do you want to come and do that? And I was like, yeah. I was like, totally. I will love to do that.
Yeah. A job out of college. That's amazing.
Yeah. And it pays the bills, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, yeah, I'll totally come and do it. And it ended up that I just kept going. Because again, with that people aspect, of, all right, I can meet people where they're at, that emotional intelligence, being able to read. I started off actually in Pennsylvania because I was living in Pittsburgh at the time. So I've not always been in Illinois. And so, I did that for a few years and just kept, moving up, and they transfer you to a lot of different stores to get a lot of different experiences. But is amazing.
Yeah. And how, okay, I have so many questions, but we're going to start with, you got a degree in criminal justice.
Yes, ma'am.
What did you want to do with it?
So I wanted to be a police officer. So that was the original idea. I was like, oh my gosh, because my older brother was a huge inspiration in my life. So he's actually 8 years older than me. And I just was like, I want to be just like you. I thought he was the coolest dude. And so he was my inspiration for going for criminal justice. And then I went on a couple of police ride-alongs because he worked out in Vegas at the Metro, Las Vegas Metro Police.
Time out.
Yes.
You did ride-alongs in Vegas?
I did. And it was, and somehow, even with the epilepsy, I did midnights. And I saw a lot of things, and I was like, this is not for me. So I was like, this has been great, but no, this is not happening. And so, once you kind of cross that off your list, options become very limited. And so I was just like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, and that's how my journey started, you know?
Well, and so as like this journey starts, did you ever encounter any difficulties or pushback with your epilepsy, or
Yeah.
where were you at that point with like seizures and stuff?
Sure, sure. So, you know, I was diagnosed with epilepsy when I was 12. And so, you know, it's always been this roller coaster, right? I talk about it all the time. You know, it's like, okay, we've got it all under control and everything's great. And then boom, you have like a dip for some reason. And so even once I graduated college, you know, there was still breakthrough seizures happening and medication adjustments and things like that. And so most, and like I said, we get transferred a lot, you know, as assistant managers, you know, as we build up our career and our journey, move along on our journey. And most people were, and most of my bosses were very supportive. And whatever you need, whatever restrictions you have, like no problem.
That's amazing.
Yeah, which
and rare.
Yeah, which you know is great, especially since it's like tomorrow. I don't know if I'm gonna have a seizure tomorrow. I don't know if my medication is gonna change. But there was definitely a couple of instances where my epilepsy seemed to come across as an inconvenience or
It
an
always
annoyance,
is.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, at the time I was 24, 25 years old, and I'm just learning how to navigate the corporate retail, you know, environment. And there was one incident that really changed and rocked my world. One of the things that we do in the stores is overnight floor waxing. And at the time, well, this has always been a restriction of mine, is that I can't do overnights because sleep deprivation is a huge trigger for me. So, you know, my neurologist like wrote the note, you know, for all my managers, and oh, she can't do overnights, you know, and no, what we call clopens, closing the store and then opening the next morning, because I was only getting
Clopens. I love it.
Isn't it great? I know. It's like, so we call them clopens. So my boss came to me one day and he's like, I need you to do the overnight floor waxing tonight because the normal person can't do it. And so you have to do it. And I was like, hold on just a second. You know, I have the letter from my neurologist. It says on there, you know, I can't do overnights. I'm really like, I'm sorry. Because of my disease, I can't do it. And it was like, you know, if you can't do overnights, like you're never going to be a store manager because that's a requirement. So, and I was just like, I know. And at the time, like as a kid who's just up and coming in my career.
In your early 20s. I mean, come on.
Yes.
Like, when is life scarier?
Right.
And less and more shaky and unknown than that?
Exactly. And that's the last thing you want to hear when you're realizing like, okay, I can be successful in this realm of leadership and management, and someone tells you that you're never going to be able to do it because I can't do overnights. Like that doesn't make sense.
Well, and I think it's easy to laugh about now.
Yeah.
Because it's so asinine, but that's because we're much older than that now.
Yep.
And we know that that's ridiculous. But like you said, at that time, that's terrifying. That's like
it's a career killer.
Yeah.
You know? And I didn't know any better. So I mean, like when we talk about things like you know, ADA and, you know, and making sure that there's no, you know, discrimination or anybody that's saying things like that in the workplace, I didn't know. Like, I didn't know that I probably should have gone to HR about that, but I did ask, you know, one level up, you know, I to one of the leaders, I said, you know, this is what I was told. Is this true? And it wasn't a yes. It wasn't a no. It was, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, you know, type of thing. That was the answer.
Okay.
And, you know, for a lot of people that would have been a career killer. Like, why am I going to keep doing this if I'm never going to make it to my goal? But for me, I'm a Taurus, so I'm very stubborn, and I'm very much like, okay, you're telling me I can't do it, but I'm going to show you how I can. And that's just
nothing like some haters to up that motivation,
fuel that fire.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, the more haters, the better, right? But I kept going. You know, I used it as fuel to my fire, and I said, I'm not going to allow someone to tell me that I can't do something because of my disease that I didn't ask for. You know?
Yeah.
And so But that really was the last nail in the coffin for me, because I was already thinking about moving to Chicago anyway, because I was motivated to keep climbing the ladder. And the goal was to go to the support center in corporate at some point and be the voice for the little guy and like really, make a difference. And so, but in order to do that, I had to move to Chicago. So that was really that moment, and that incident was really like, okay, like I'm done here. It's been great. Like Pittsburgh, you've been great, but like I'm out of here. And within 6 months I moved.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are stubborn in a great way.
In the best way.
Yes.
Yes.
Like, I mean, I feel like we could also call that determined,
Yeah.
and disciplined and badass. There's a lot of adjectives thrown
Oh my
around in there for like,
Yeah.
for taking that and being like, okay, this moment that, like you said, and when you said that, like, it could have been a career killer, I think about how many people out there that have heard something like that, and it was.
Yeah.
And there's no judgment towards that. Like,
Sure.
I understand that, but like, I'm just so happy you're here to tell this story, because then hopefully other people listening can be like, okay, I'm going to take a little Jessica Chappell,
Exactly.
and just take some of that little energy, and not little, take some of the big energy and like put it in my pocket and run, because that's amazing.
Yeah.
So what happened when you got to Chicago?
Yeah. So I was a salaried assistant manager at that time, because I did make it through my program in Pittsburgh and was promoted. So yay. And so I was doing the assistant manager thing out here for a while. And I eventually made it to store manager. Oh my God.
Wow, without the, what are they, clopers? What are they?
Clopins. Without overnight floor waxing, I made it to store manager. So
I don't know if you're qualified.
I wasn't sure. I was very insecure about it, but I did it. And I was a store manager for 2.5 years out here. But I'll tell you what, like, that was a very isolated event that happened. Like I never experienced any type of, pushback, discrimination. Oh, you're an inconvenience. Like my leaders were so supportive when I came out to Chicago, and it was like night and day. And I was like, okay, this is what good leadership looks like. And I had all these amazing mentors around me who, despite, what I was facing with my epilepsy, they supported me and elevated me, which was like a breath of fresh air. And
that's literally what I was thinking. I was like, oh my God, I just love this.
Yes.
Because it's so unusual, sadly.
Yeah.
But it's just very unusual. And then to feel like that type of support backed behind you is incredible.
And like, that's the thing. And that's why I even though the memory of it sucks, like, that's why I talk about it, because I never want anyone to give up just because someone tells you you can't do it. Because chances are, if you keep pushing through it and say, I'm going to prove you wrong, because I know what value I bring to the table, you are going to encounter those mentors and those leaders who will support you and will say, like, you're okay, you have epilepsy, like, big deal. Like, we're going to, let's figure out a plan to work around it and help you be successful and reach your goals.
Absolutely. And I loved that part. I want to like note that part where you said, know your value.
Yeah.
Because
everybody brings it.
Yeah. Yes. And everyone has different value, and figure out what yours is, even if it's constantly fluid and constantly moving, but it's there.
Absolutely.
And I think that's something that's especially for women in the workplace too, just because of, well, we don't have time to get into because of,
that's a whole nother episode, right?
But I think sometimes it can be harder for us to like identify what that value is. Yeah. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
So what are you doing now?
Yeah. So, I reached my goal. I'm at the support center now. And that's been like a whole other advocacy journey in and of itself, because, my entire life up until about 2019, I very much hid my epilepsy, like a lot of people do. Especially after an incident like that, I never want anyone to think that like lesser of me or think that I'm not capable because of my epilepsy. But in 2019, that all changed. I was up at the support center for 2 years, and I met two really amazing people who were involved in the disability BRG, which many people will know as ERGs, which are employee resource groups. BRGs are business resource groups. You know, it's the same thing, just different wording.
So many acronyms in the
I
business
know.
world.
Gosh,
I cannot keep up.
There's 2 pages of acronyms, okay, that we have that we pass out to new employees. Like, it's a whole thing.
And I am going to say, for some epileptics like myself, I could not memorize all those. Like,
no. Even after 16, I think it's been 16 and a half years now with the company, and I'm still working on it. So, but, you know, they were like very involved in the Disability Alliance, BRG. So we advocate and engage people with disabilities and diseases, but also caregivers, because we can't do it without them, right? Who are employed at the company. And they were like, look, we need you. Like, we want you to join us. We want you to tell your story. Like, you can impact so many people. And I was like, I've never told my story in my life. You know, I don't know about this, but, you know.
Were you scared?
I was terrified. Like, it's terrifying to open up to people at your place of employment to say, look, I've got this disease and this is my story. And I hope you still think highly of me, you know, kind of thing.
And aren't scared of me.
Yeah.
And don't find me inconvenient, and all the things that
Right.
we've encountered along the way.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And once I opened up, that level of support just flowed in, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, I don't have to be so scared anymore. Yeah.
So beautiful.
And it's interesting because I did open up to the smaller group, you know, and kind of like started branching out. All right, I'm gonna, you know, tell my coworkers along, and of course I always tell my boss, but like, I'm gonna let my coworkers know so that they can help me if something happens and that kind of thing. But it was a conversation with a former executive that I had, registered pharmacist, so in the business for a long time. And I was talking about, I think there was a product that had just launched at Walgreens. I can't remember exactly what product it was, but it sparked my interest in like, hey, is Walgreens thinking about getting into the world of epilepsy? So I asked for time with him on his calendar, and he let me have it, 30 minutes. And I was like,
girl,
oh my God.
I love those big apps.
Oh,
and you're like,
man.
I'm just going for it. Yeah.
YOLO. Okay. YOLO. You've got to do it. You've got to go for it. What's the worst that can happen? They say no. Okay. Big deal, you know, and then wait a couple weeks and try again. You know? Never give up. I'm stubborn. Okay. That's what I do. But I was asking him, and during our conversation, he ended up asking me, like, what do you actually do if someone has a seizure? And I was like, wait, you're a pharmacist. Like, wait, you're like professionally, you know, like, how do you not know? And boom, like this light bulb went off, and I was like, oh man, like, we've got something here that opened up a new door of advocacy for me to say, like, how do we get pharmacists more involved in understanding epilepsy as a disease state? And like, how do I get the company more involved in spreading that epilepsy awareness? And I've told this story a couple of times, but it all started with the seizure first aid poster. So I insisted on this poster being up on the walls, like in the area where I was working. Because no matter who's passing through, if I have a seizure, I want to make sure they know, stay safe side, you know, make sure I'm on my side, make sure, like, don't put anything in my mouth. Don't.
Right.
Because people don't know.
No,
like, he didn't know.
don't.
This pharmacist didn't know that, like, you don't put something like a spoon in a person's mouth. I'm like, oh my God, like, no.
Yeah.
Like, we don't do that.
Yeah.
And
well, okay, this kind of answers a question, but I'm curious, when you said you told your coworkers that you have epilepsy.
Yeah.
I've been in this situation too, but then I never said, here's what to do if I had a seizure, because I was so nervous about disclosing the epilepsy part. So when you told your coworkers, did you tell them or no?
Yeah.
You did.
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
So you told them what to do, and then this conversation with like a very, very educated, smart pharmacist was like, holy shit, but so many people don't know that we think do.
Yep.
Okay.
And it was actually his idea, like, hey, maybe we can hang the posters up around. Like, maybe we could do.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. I was like, that's a great idea. And, you know, and so I started doing that, and, you know, safety and legal, and everybody was like super supportive. And they're like, yeah. This is really important.
That's
like,
awesome.
let's do it. And, when you throw those stats out there about 1 in 26 people having epilepsy, 1 in 10 experiencing a seizure, whether it's epilepsy or not, like, you can't deny the importance of ensuring that this information and this first aid is out there. And so they were totally supportive. And since 2019, that was between 2019 before pre-pandemic of 2020. Since then, like epilepsy seizures are a official disease state at Walgreens now. They're invested in all different kinds of epilepsy things, like clinical trials and everything.
Wow.
Everything, advocacy, getting involved with local groups like Danny did here in Chicago and stuff like that. So
that's amazing because of you. That is really, thank you.
It's hard for me. Yeah. Like, yes. It's just like, you can't give up.
Yeah.
And so I've had people ask me, how do I do this at my company? Like, how do I do what you did? And I'm like, starts with one conversation with your boss, with somebody who's influential at your company, somebody who, will hopefully be this advocate for you.
And usually based on personalities, you can tell who will go for it and who won't. Yeah. So it is a gamble. There's no but generally you can figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. And they truthfully, like, the company has just been amazing. And
so you have these posters up around you. And like, what did that lead to? Did that lead to like more questions? Did that lead to people like being like, cool, I know how to do now? Or like, what was was there a response?
There was questions, which was great because they're conversation starters that allowed me the opportunity to have those really important conversations, to be like, so this is my experience with epilepsy and, and this and that, and give them that perspective. But also, I've annually done a major event at the corporate office every November for Epilepsy Awareness Month, where I bring in speakers. I've had panels of employees, not just from the support center, but also from our stores, tell their story and experience with epilepsy and seizures. And I invite executives, I invite people to these events. And so really, like, it all started with the posters to say, okay, this is a great start, but how do we do more? How do we keep doing more? How do we really show the impact and all the variations and differences of epilepsy? Like, my epilepsy is not the same as yours or the next person or the next person. And so
just like personalities, no two are the same.
Yeah.
There's similarities, but they're not the same.
Right.
Yeah.
And so annually, so this November coming up, gosh, is it my 6th annual or 7th annual now? I don't do math.
You're like, I'm so baller, I can't keep
track. No, I don't do
that's
math.
what I'm saying for you. I'm speaking for you.
You're
right
the
now.
best.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. But I can't give up. Like, our community needs it. And, and I just got to keep going.
Was there any negative pushback to any of this?
What I was doing sometimes, so it was in my area, but I was like, okay, like, we need to put it on the first floor. Like, we need the posters like over here and on all the fridges and all the cafeterias, because they weren't everywhere at first like they are now. So I was hanging them up on fridges and different things like that in different areas. And I was regularly checking on my floor to make sure that the posters
You're the
were still
poster
up.
mama. You're like, I got to check in my babies, make sure they're doing okay.
I just got to make sure, because that there's those people out there, even if they smile and say like, I'm supportive. The poster, I started noticing that in a specific area of the office, posters were being taken down. And so I was like, well, luckily I got like 350 copies of this poster. So I'm just going to keep putting them up and replacing them. And I think eventually whoever was taking them down just gave up because it stopped.
Because they were fighting with you.
Yeah.
And you will win.
I will. Because I don't give up.
Yeah.
I'm a Taurus.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that story it just amazes me, because it's like, here you are being incredibly vulnerable by putting these posters up, right? Mm-hmm. And then someone takes it down, and then like, which is kind of just like a little kick in the gut, not like, or shins maybe or something. Yeah. Where you're just like, do I just walk it off or whatever? And you were like, fuck no. Yeah. I'm going to go and just put this back up every single day. I'm going to win. Like, I admire that so much, and it's something that, like, I wanna like, that's my piece of Jessica Chappell I wanna take and put in my heart and, like, use because I think it is so easy just to be like, "Ah, well, maybe I'm bothering someone,"
Right.
but you're like,
Yeah.
no, this is important," and I
Yeah.
love that, just sticking to your values,
Yeah.
which is absolutely amazing.
Yeah. And it's just it's so important. And people, unless they have a loved one that has epilepsy and seizures or they experience it themselves, it's very hard to imagine what it's like having that seizure or like a public seizure in an office, or even at home, or wherever
Yeah.
you are. And it's just some people don't have that empathy to be like, okay, I agree this is important. Let's just leave the poster up. It's like, oh God, like, I'm gonna take it down. No. Okay.
I almost, like, feel sorry for that person because 'cause I'm like, "Oh, what is going on in your life that makes you that?"
Like really want to take this poster down and throw it out. Like, is it
Like,
really
"Oh,
that bad?
honey.
Like,
Oh,
what's going
honey, I'm
on?
so sorry for whatever you're dealing with, but,
Right.
like, fuck off."
Yeah. 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 But it ended. And now the posters are on every floor in every building. And we actually have boards that, have all the important contact information for various things. And bam, seizure first aid poster is the third one up there.
Wow. That's so awesome.
Yeah. And I couldn't have done it without, finding those people in the organization, regardless of where a person works, like finding those people who will, be like, I got your back and I support you on this.
Mhm.
And it can take time. Like it really, I think it took like three years, to at least really get that buy-in from the business. Like I had my advocates, and we were all talking about it. We just didn't stop. But you've got to find those people. And sometimes doors do shut in your face. And sometimes people just say, I don't have the capacity, right now to handle that, or it's not the right time. Okay. Well, then you go to the next person and see,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, and I just keep thinking of all of the people in that building or any of those buildings who have epilepsy
Mhm.
and don't disclose it for whatever
Yep.
reason they have
Mhm.
and felt seen.
Yeah.
And I'm going to start tearing up. Like what a difference you made to those people too.
Yeah.
Because as many people, as I'm sure came out and said, "Oh my God, I have epilepsy too,"
Mhm.
feeling like it was safe now. But we know that there still is people who aren't comfortable doing that, which is okay.
Right.
No judgment, but like just seeing that and being like, okay, people know what to do,
Yep.
you know?
And I get emails all the time,
Mm,
I haven't told my boss, I haven't told my coworker, I haven't told anyone, but thank you so much. And it's like, those are the people that I want to touch. You're not alone. Because you can feel very alone, and that's the whole goal. For me, personally, that's my mission is I never want anyone to feel alone in their epilepsy journey, especially in the workplace, because what happened to me as a young person, trying to build my career, I never want that to happen to anyone else, And so that's what drives me, to just continue and not shut up. I tell people all the time, I'm not going to shut up about it. But that's it.
Well, and this isn't the only space
Right. I
that you're
know.
being incredibly vocal because
I
we do
know.
have like a kind of cool full circle moment with you wanting to be a cop. And then I think something happened when you moved to Chicago, right?
Within 6 months, I met my husband.
And his profession is?
He is an Illinois state trooper.
Yes.
So, yeah. So I always say that I live my life vicariously through him.
Mm-hmm.
So he's great because he loves sharing stories with me about like his day. And, sometimes first responders, they're very like, I just want to come home. I don't want to talk about it. But he would always share the stories with me. And I'm like, tell me more. Like, what's going on? But yeah, he's a state trooper and he's been one now for over 17 years.
Wow.
So, yeah. I met him. He was my customer at one of my Walgreens. It was like really early morning.
No way.
Like if I had been like a minute later coming out of our stockroom, I would have missed him. And he was shopping for like Band-Aids because he had a cut on his hand. And so I was like, oh, he's cute. Okay, let me go help him. Good customer service, right? And I went over and I saw he was bleeding and I was like, oh my God, what happened? Thinking that there's going to be this great story about him, oh, I had to do this or that. And he's like, I was doing dishes last night and I cut my hand. And I said, just busted out laughing because I did not expect that. And we just had a great conversation and we went out to dinner the next night and the rest was history.
That is so cute. My jaw was like I was literally like, pick it up, like
Right.
on the ground. That is the cutest meet cute.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I love that. And then was that kind of your segue? Because you are, and I'm going to butcher this name because it's very
It's
long,
okay.
but it's like a certified person for epilepsy training in
Law enforcement.
You do it for me because I'm going to mess it up.
It's seizure recognition and response training for law enforcement officers.
Damn.
I was one of 20. I think there was 20 people who across the United States who got certified in Atlanta, Georgia, with the Epilepsy Foundation, and so that was amazing. And so now I'm certified to train law enforcement officers in proper seizure response.
What does that look like? I'm so curious.
Yeah.
Do you ever like tell your husband, you're like, I can come into work one day and tell you what to do?
Yeah.
Like I can be your boss.
Well, I always say like, since we've gotten married, he's probably learned more about seizures and epilepsy than he ever wanted to know. But the most important part is that it's also made him a better trooper, right?
So I'm just sorry, but my husband is a firefighter.
Yeah, right.
And he has said the same thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just because like there are certain days of the week where there's more seizures. And he's just like, it's really helped me figure out and navigate, this now having seen it up close and literally personal. So it's just so funny that we both have first responder husbands.
I know. So you understand, like, it's the same thing. And state troopers here in Illinois receive like EMT level emergency response training. So they do touch on seizures when they're in the academy and things like that. But it's not like so when we talk about seizure recognition and response, there are over 40 different seizure types. And, we can't always make assumptions that the person who's in front of you who's acting maybe like a little irrational, like maybe they're under the influence, they may not be. They may be having a seizure. And so do officers understand that? Officers, troopers, sheriffs, whoever they are. And so the whole goal of the training is to get into these departments and really have those conversations about, have you seen a seizure? What was it like? And hey, here's some other different types of seizures. And how do you respond in a way that isn't making those assumptions and assessing to the best of your professional knowledge of like getting them an ambulance instead of taking them to jail. Mm-hmm. Right. And then also,
which happens
a lot.
Way too frequently. Yeah. I feel like everyone knows someone who has either been arrested, kicked out, tased. I mean, it's like, because
it's horrible.
Yeah.
It's horrible. And it happens way more often than people think. And there's so little knowledge out there for law enforcement officers and first responders in general about like VNS, RNS. Like you tase somebody who's got like a VNS, like it's going to go right to their brain, like depending on where you hit, with the taser on the body. And so those are the types of things that are talked about in this training. And so I've had some really great conversations with the State Police Academy here in Illinois about, how do we get the cadets involved? How do we get this training, a little bit more? And the Epilepsy Foundation is working on that. And I am really just the voice and the advocate and obviously certified to train. But, I'm really trying to hit those smaller departments that, maybe really don't have that full EMT training, and they only know the seizures that they see in Hollywood. And well, it's a lot more than that, way more than that,
Right.
So,
and the post-ictal phase, especially initially, where it's very common to act belligerent or just irrational or any of those things, and I think that's also the thing that we just need to train, and that's why you're in the world.
Yeah.
Jessica Chappell.
Yeah.
So that you can
I'm trying, girl. I am trying.
You're doing a pretty fucking good job. So,
Thanks. Yeah.
and the one thing I just want to touch on a little bit was
Yeah.
that you told me you are a gamer. And the
Yes.
reason I want to talk about that is, first of
Mhm.
all, you have to understand I'm totally ignorant, so I don't know anything about gaming.
Sure.
But I do know a lot of stigma about epilepsy and gaming. Like, I've had people ask me, like, does gaming cause epilepsy? Can people with epilepsy game? And I'm usually like, I think, pretty sure no to the first one of causing
Right.
epilepsy. Like,
Mhm.
I just, again, don't know a lot about it, but then, like, can it, all the other things, I'm just never,
Yeah.
I don't know anything about it. So anyway, you're a gamer, you have epilepsy,
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. So, as far as what I know is the same level as you. From what I know, video games, and I'm a PC gamer, so I don't do like,
What does
the
that mean?
Xbox, so the like laptop,
Oh, okay.
PC.
Okay.
But my husband is, he has his Xbox S or whatever, and and so I do watch him play video games on their console, but I don't do that. I'm a PC gamer, but
Is that because of epilepsy, or is that just
I
like a
can't like
preference?
the hand-eye coordination with
Yeah.
like a hand stick, like I
Yeah.
just can't. Like it's
Okay.
just it doesn't work out for me. So
Yeah.
I'm just like I'm just gonna stick to my laptop and like we'll just be
Stay in
fine.
my comfort zone.
Yeah,
Yeah. So it's not necessarily like this will cause me seizures. It's more just like, I like this on the
Right.
PC. Okay.
Exactly. And although like there's risks with any type of gaming, especially if it's like a first person view. So what does that mean? First person view is like, so I'm a Harry Potter fan, Hogwarts. I'm a Hufflepuff. So if anyone is a Harry Potter fan out there, go House Hufflepuff, okay? But they recently came out with a game, Hogwarts Legacy, and so you are a wizard in the game, and
That's
so
cool.
you're running through the woods, and basically you are the person. Like the view that you see on the laptop screen is you, and running through the woods, and so it can be very dizzying. Anytime you shoot with your wand, you shoot a spell, there's flashing lights. So Hogwarts Legacy did a great job in having the warning. Like if you have epilepsy, seizure disorder, there are flashing lights, and they give you that warning. And a lot of games today do have those warnings. And so that's the first thing that's really important is like no matter what game you're playing, whether it's a first person or something else, check to see if they have those warnings, read the box or read the fine print before you purchase a game on Steam or your Xbox 3 Pass or whatever it is. I don't know. My husband would have to.
I don't either. I'm like, I feel like now this is just a whole world of words I don't understand.
It's like all out there. But that's the biggest thing. Those first person view games, are the ones that probably have the most risk. But every game has a risk. But the biggest thing too is also that every person is different, so you have to gauge. So like when I'm playing Hogwarts Legacy, there were times where I would have to take breaks because I'm like starting to get a little dizzy, feeling kind of funny, and I'm like, okay, time to put the laptop away and just go rest my eyes, shut the screen. You have to listen to your body. But I would definitely say like with photosensitive epilepsy, like that you have to be very, very careful what games you're playing and ask the questions. If you have to send something to the developers of the games to say, hey, you have flashing lights in your game, because not all of them have those warnings. Yeah.
Be proactive. Just go
Yeah,
ahead
you
and
have
ask.
to.
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah.
Because I'll even watch movies today and I'm like, wow, this should have a warning. And it doesn't.
There's this amazing, I'm going to do a shout out to this Instagram account that's called Strobe Alert.
Oh.
And it literally goes through like popular TV shows or movies that have just come out and watches them and gives you the strobe alert rating and like where there's any sort of flashing lights or anything like that.
Amazing.
So I can't believe they don't have a bigger following right now, but it's just at Strobe Alert.
Oh my
and I have thanked them a million times because like I'll like look at their recommendation before I choose a movie.
That's amazing. I didn't even know about that. So I'm gonna follow them.
Yeah, I'll put their handle in the episode description because like everyone should be following them. They're so incredible.
Gosh. Yeah, and it's so important because like we don't know, and I don't have photosensitive epilepsy, but I do very much get dizzy, motion sickness, and then my brain starts feeling weird, and I'm just
Same.
like, oh my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
say it's like nails on a chalkboard to like
Yes.
people who don't have epilepsy because I'm like, I don't know how to explain it. It's
Yeah.
not going to cause a seizure, but it's going to make me really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
and you do not want to keep listening to it.
Right.
So you
Yep.
don't want to keep listening to nails on a chalkboard. You don't want to keep watching that shit. So you have to
Right.
like walk away. Yeah,
Exactly.
totally.
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
Okay. Well, before we end, I've got 4 questions for you
Okay.
that are unrelated to anything we
I
talked
love it.
about. Okay. Number 1, what's your favorite color?
That would be pink. Mm-hmm.
Should have known that one.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm at the pink.
Yeah. Yeah. You
Mhm.
strike me as a
Right.
pink girl. You see, you can pull off pink though.
Right.
Number 2, what's like your favorite or go-to movie or TV show?
Oh my gosh, that's such a hard one. So I'll do both. My favorite movie is Top Gun. It's been my favorite movie since I was a little kid. So when Top Gun Maverick came out, I was like, oh my God. I'm like crying in the movie. I cry when I'm happy, sad, angry. Like I'm a crier. Okay. So I was like, Top Gun Maverick. Oh my God. But as far as TV shows, what I'm really into right now on Netflix is like the European limited series. So I know it sounds weird, but Netflix does a great job of dubbing that makes it look really natural. And the European limited series are amazing. So if you haven't checked them out, like if you're into true crime and you're into stuff like that, like me, obviously criminal justice, didn't pan out. So if you're into true crime, definitely check it out. So that's what I'm into right now, but I can't like pick just one show.
No, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just doesn't have to be the one. Just
Yeah.
just one maybe
What
you're
I'm
into
into.
right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Number 3, what's like a self-care routine or something that you do for yourself that you really, really enjoy?
Yeah. So I've recently got back into sketching. So when I
Cool.
was a teenager, my dad did get transferred. So I actually started the first 13 years of my life in New Jersey. And then my dad got transferred for work out to Pittsburgh. And I was like, where is Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania? I've never even heard of this town in my life. And I was going into 8th grade, and it was rough because these kids all have their established friendships, and it was a huge
Oh,
school. I was going from like a
yeah.
school of like maybe like 200 or 300 kids to like 1,000, and I was like, oh my God, I'm like swimming in this sea of like I don't know anyone. But what helped me get through my teenage years was drawing, painting, like whatever. But then life gets in the way. You grow up, go get a career, and then I met my husband and became a stepmom and like all of these things, and you just kind of lose that passion. But my best friend recently started watercoloring, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's so cool. And like I used to draw, and she's like, you should keep drawing because like those comorbidities with epilepsy, anxiety, I also have dysthymia, all of those things.
I'm sorry, I'm ignorant. What's
Mild
dysthymia?
depression. So
Okay.
it comes and goes,
Okay.
type of thing. And because it's just been, with all the ups and downs, and then like life in general,
Yeah.
it's just been rough.
I didn't know there's a
And
name to it.
yeah,
I can
mm-hmm, yeah. And so I picked up a pencil and I got a sketchbook again and started sketching. And so anytime I'm really stressed out, anxiety, that's what I do is I sketch. But
That's awesome.
yeah, so even if you're not all that great, like just putting markers, colored pencils down to paper, you can focus on your lines, you can focus on your curves, and like it doesn't even have to be a picture. Like it
Yeah.
can just be whatever.
Yeah, when
Leave
I
your
was like
emotions on the paper.
really in it and like unable to do much,
Yeah.
my friends gave me those like adult coloring
Oh,
books
yes.
and like
Amazing.
which like have a bunch of like little squirrels and
Mhm.
then like go fuck off like in like in the flowers and
Yes, those are the best.
yeah, and like it kind of gives you some joy
It's
to like bring
amazing.
color to these little squirrels
Mhm.
that are so cute that has like a message of how you feel.
Right. Yep.
So yeah, no, I get that. That's so great. That's great advice though. Just like pick it up. Because
Yeah.
even if it's nothing, sometimes even doodling can just help.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
those little things. And the other thing I wanted to mention is this app called Finch. And I recently discovered it. My friend, who is also going through a journey of managing her mental health like me, told me about Finch. And it's if you are a generation of somewhat at the end of millennial and you had a Tamagotchi growing up, it's basically like Tamagotchi like 10.0. And it's this little finch that you take care of, and like it helps you manage like self-care, helps you set goals, and there's no negative interaction. It's just as you meet your goals, like your finch grows and like it gets a little pet, and like it goes on adventures and like all of these things. And I know like it sounds a little bit lame, but I was a Tamagotchi girl.
Yes,
and I was
me
like,
too.
Finch is the most amazing app ever, but it also like tracks your moods and it really helps you manage your mental health.
Wow.
So that also has
That's a
been my
great
newest self-care thing, because it
Mhm.
helps keep me like, okay, I've got to meet my goals for the day.
Okay, last question. What does it mean to you to be a friend?
The most important thing is for me is really loyalty. Making sure that you're checking in on your friends, making sure that you're there no matter what, no matter what's going on, can count on me, and then definitely also just understanding from an emotional intelligence level, like what I need at that moment. Maybe I just need someone to like cry on their shoulder. Maybe I just need someone to listen, and I don't always need advice. That person is a friend. And I also try to be that person as much as I can for my friends as well. But it's always someone you can count on.
Well, thank you so much for being here, Jessica.
Thank you
This
for
has just
inviting
been
me.
like I'm just so blown away by your amazingness, and you are a true inspiration.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Back at you, girl.
Oh, well, thanks.